Hey, welcome back, Warrior Kids. My name is Pam Palmater, and I am the host of the Warrior Kids podcast, which, as you all know by now, is taped before our famous live studio audience, Cricket. I am a Mi'kmaq professor who has created this podcast to celebrate everything Indigenous and work with Warrior Kids to help make the world a better place. And if that sounds like something you'd like to do, then join us here every Wednesday and learn something really cool along the way. We are officially into Season 2 of our Warrior Kids podcast, and I'm so excited to share with you some of the plans that we have. Yes, I know, Cricket. I'll tell them. So first of all, Cricket says, pretty hard to have a kids podcast without actually talking to kids sometimes. And I agree with him. So we are inviting Warrior Kids who are doing something special to make the world a better place to have their parents contact me through our website contact form at www.warriorkidspodcast.com, or they can email us directly at warriorkidspodcast@hotmail.com. We want to hear your stories about walking your little brother to school, maybe helping your neighbors clean their yard, raising money to help people in need, taking steps to protect the environment, or learning more about Indigenous cultures and help sharing that with the people you know. Cricket and I would love to have a Zoom call with you and share your stories with all the kids who listen to the Warrior Kids podcast. We are also going to be sharing other special activities in the weeks to come, so make sure you don't miss any of our episodes. So now that we have Cricket's exciting suggestion out of the way, let's get on with today's podcast. Do you all remember when we did that episode about all the different kinds of foods that came from Indigenous peoples? Yeah, like maple syrup. Maple syrup that comes from traditional native practices of harvesting syrup from maple trees. I can't imagine eating pancakes without maple syrup. It's so good. Well, there are other cool things that originated with Native peoples, and that includes songs, dances, artwork, and even some sports. Yes, that's right, even sports. I have always really loved sports of all kinds. When I was a kid, my two favorite subjects in school were art class and gym class. I loved learning all different kinds of sports, both team sports and individual sports. Some of my favorite sports were badminton, soccer, and basketball. Oh yes, Cricket, I'll tell them. But I don't think tag is a sport. I think it's more of a fun game. Okay, I agree, Cricket. Some dogs might consider chasing after their humans as a sport. But honestly, it's not much of a chase because Cricket can outrun me every single time. I'm not a very fast runner compared to him. Ah, yes, our alligator friend reminds me that I would likely be able to run a lot faster if it was alligators chasing me and not dogs. Thanks for that reminder. I always forget that this alligator is here. I think I better start keeping track of all the live animals and stuffy animals I have hanging around my podcast studio. So, aside from running with dogs and running away from alligators, I learned to play lots of sports in school. And the best part about any of the sports that I played was how good I felt afterwards. For sure, I was always tired. But it was a good kind of tired, like my body was saying, "Thank you, Pam Palmater, for exercising your muscles, your lungs, and your heart, and for keeping me healthy." Which reminds me, the Mi'kmaq word for healthy is judgigig, or some people pronounce the word dudgigig. See how close they are? Do you hear the difference? Judgigig and dudgigig. Another Mi'kmaq word which is related is weleg, and that means living well. Weleg. So, playing sports helps keep you healthy, judgigig, and it is part of living well, weleg. I also learned from my coaches over the years that not only were sports fun and helped keep you healthy, but they were also good for your brain. And I always used to wonder, how could that be? I mean, my brain isn't running around. But in fact, your brain works extra hard when you play sports because it's remembering all the rules of the game, it's helping you plan your next move, and it's keeping all of your body parts moving all at the same time. The most amazing thing I learned about sports is that they all have different origins, which means that they were all originally played in different cultures before they became popular in modern day. And one of those sports is the game of lacrosse. Did you know that lacrosse is an Indigenous sport? Yeah, it's true. Lacrosse is a game where two teams play with long sticks that have small nets on the end, and they throw a ball to one another to try to get it to the net of the other team. Different Indigenous nations on Turtle Island played different versions of this game with different numbers of players and rules, but the game itself was quite similar. It wasn't called lacrosse in the old days. The sport would have had different names because it would have been according to the different languages spoken by that specific Indigenous nation at the time. There are also many different native traditions and customs that are attached to the sport of lacrosse. It's sometimes played for ceremonial purposes to give thanks to the Creator or the Great Spirit. Today, the sport of lacrosse can still be played by First Nations in a ceremonial or traditional context, and it's also played professionally, like all the other sports. One of the most famous professional lacrosse teams is known as the Iroquois Nationals Lacrosse. The Iroquois are also referred to as the Haudenosaunee, or the people of the Longhouse, and includes nations that you might have heard of like the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, and Tuscarora. Haudenosaunee peoples have been playing the sport, which is known as lacrosse today, for thousands of years before Europeans even came to Turtle Island. And guess what else? I actually got to talk to some amazing Haudenosaunee lacrosse players from the actual Iroquois Nationals lacrosse team. I know, I'm so excited. I can't believe I actually got to talk to them. You see, I have another podcast, and it's a podcast for grown-ups called Warrior Life Podcast, where I get to talk to Native peoples from all over Turtle Island doing really amazing things. During this podcast, I got to talk to Jeremy Thompson, Brendan Bomberry, and Randy Stott all about the game of lacrosse and what it means to them. So today I'm going to share with you some of the interview that I did. First, Brendan talks about how whether you win or lose the game, it's all about trying hard. That's important.
I think that we still carry that traditional meaning in our mind when we're playing. We carry on. We know that we're playing for a much higher purpose, to entertain our creator, our families, and the fans. And that's medicine right there. Although we still do our traditional medicine games, and we continue that mindset going into a regular game where obviously wins and losses matter. But at the end of the day, it's more about how you played the game. You played with heart, you played with passion, you played it, as hard as you can. And those are things that people stick onto and they like to see. And that's, for all of us, that's medicine right there as well.
What a great way to think about all sports. And then Randy shared with us how proud he is to put on the Indigenous uniform and meet Indigenous peoples from all over the world.
And that's the thing that I've come to realize, when we put on that jersey, I feel like I'm representing more than just my people. It's more of all Indigenous people across Turtle Island to me because of the support I felt. And when you see that as a player, it's much more than lacrosse. It's way bigger than that because we've been a part of some ceremonies and it was life-changing for me. And it's something I'll never forget. And so I think that's the cool part that I like to see is that we're not just representing us, and learning other cultures along the way is something special.
Isn't that great? Indigenous people sharing their culture with one another? And last but not least, we got to hear from Jeremy, who told us the Haudenosaunee story about how the game of lacrosse came to be.
And that kind of takes me to the original story of this game and how it was, the way I understood it and how this story was told from nation to nation. But the way I understand it is that this game was played up in the sky world, up in the heavens before it was sent down here on earth. And the way we view things as a culture is what's going on down here is what's going on up there in the heavens. And to me, I understand that this game, before it was played here, was played between these animals. How these animals played this game was it was split up between two teams, between the winged and the four-legged, the ground animals. And you had all these different animals, such as the bear. And you think about the bear, he might not be the quickest. You would obviously think that he's quick and good with his hands. If you think about what a bear's special at, he's good at getting fish out of the water. We look at an eagle, he's unique with his eyes, can oversee a view of everything. And you translate into the game of lacrosse, you have all these. To me, it's just funny as I kind of look back and reflect, that's how the game of lacrosse is kind of still being played. It's unique to me to see that you had not one player can do the same as what the other players did. And I kind of conclude everything back to that original story, because you have the turtle that could withstand hard blows, or the deer was quick on his feet. So as you could see, you would ultimately think back to, man, all these animals had a specialty. They brought their special, what they were unique at to this game, and they made it. It's essentially all these energies that they brought to this game and brought it and put it out on the field or the floor, whatever you want to call it. And I can still see that today in today's society, and this sport that we play is transcendent into something that I see from those original teachings.
Wow, what a great story. So, we learned an awful lot on today's Warrior Kids podcast. We all learned 3 more Mi'kmaq words. Do you remember them? 2 of the words sounded almost identical. Judgygig and Dudgygig, and they both mean healthy. And the word for living well was Weleg. So part of living well, Weleg, and being healthy, Judgygig, is getting exercise, which can include playing sports. We also learned why the sport of lacrosse is called the Creator's Game. According to Haudenosaunee traditions, it was played by all the animals in the sky world and then given to humans as a gift. I think that's one of my favorite stories ever, especially the part about the turtle. Turtle might not have been able to run fast, but he has a hard shell, so that means he could protect himself from any accidental hard blows by the lacrosse sticks that they played with. Thank you, Jeremy, Randy, and Brendan, for sharing your knowledge with all the Warrior Kids. So, Warrior Kids, what's something that we could do this week to take action about what we've learned? I have a good idea. Maybe you can share what you learned with your gym teachers, and they can show you all how to play lacrosse. Maybe you and your family can check out our Warrior Kids website, download some of the beautiful native coloring pages so that you can color them and decorate your bedroom. Or maybe, and I think this might be the coolest idea of all, maybe you could draw some pictures of the animals playing lacrosse. Wouldn't that be cool? Whatever it is, I would love to hear about it. So maybe your parents can help you send me some of these stories and artworks about everything that you're doing. Don't forget, you can check us out online at www.warriorkidspodcast.com. Thank you all for listening, learning, and acting. Till next time, later, Gators.